So
there's still that buzz and everything's going in. Run us through the 50, like the heats in the semi.
so 50 was day one, I think.
Mm-hmm.
50 heats, good, broke the Scottish record. Um,
Again.
but I was like, because I could see the boy next to me. The boy next to me, Cody Simpson. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah, I
Basically
remember. I remember watching it. Yeah, yeah.
he went away to America to be a pop star for 10 years and then came back. So I was like, I'm not letting this pop star beat me. And you see him on Insta. He's got like 5 million followers on Instagram. Like he's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I was ahead of him. And I think I can't try to remember who was in the heat. I think it was Jacob Peters who won the heat comfortably. But I was going to come second, and I want to say like 23-7, something like that. Like that's what I felt I could have done, but I mucked up the
Mm-hmm.
finish. So although I was like buzzing that I PB'd, I was still like, you know what, I can do. Like I shouldn't have been fourth there. I can
Mm-hmm.
do better. So again, I was like, right, I just need to make it. I know that if I do the same again, just make the finish better, then I've got a really good chance of being in the final. And going back to the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games 4 years ago, I think 23-9 got you maybe a bronze or maybe fourth
Mm-hmm.
in the final of 50 fly there. Um, the gold was won in 23-5. To make the final, you had to go 23-5 this year, which shows like how much the standard had come on.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like in the final, there ended up being four or five guys that were in the World Championship final like a couple of months before.
Yeah.
So that's like really like world class level. And then I was so confident going into this and watching my teammate Katie Shanahan. Like I was in the call room waiting to come out to race, and Katie Shanahan, who I swam with in Glasgow, won a bronze medal out of nowhere in the 400 IM, and I was almost in tears like in the call room watching that, and I got so hyped up, and I think I
Mm-hmm.
just if you get too hyped and excited, you end up like rushing your stroke, and I did that, and going into the finish, like I mucked it up so badly, like I'm the worst finish I've ever done in my life, and it's one of those ones where like the last two strokes I knew I'd mucked it up, and I was like, I couldn't do anything about it. And in my head, before I'd even hit the wall, I was like, I've ruined this. Like I've ruined it so badly. Ended up
Wow.
going like point 0.3 slower than I did in the heats. Came last in that semi final or something, and I was gutted. Like I was so gutted, and I didn't get media because I went round and they were, oh, how was that? And I was like, that was fucking shite. And then I didn't get spoken to again after that because I was so angry.
Yeah.
Um, and then I just beat myself up and beat myself up because I was like, although I probably wouldn't have made the final,
Mm-hmm.
I feel I could have done better than
Yeah.
I
You
didn't
wanted to
give
put a better
myself
showing on
time.
type thing, yeah.
Yeah, and then we've got these like data scientists that like once you get to this level, like they analyze everything about your race.
Mm-hmm.
And like my first 15 meters when I broke the Scottish record to qualify, we'll say, I
Mm-hmm.
was zero point 0.4 or zero point 0.5 quicker to 15 then than I was at the Commonwealth Games.
Wow.
And in my head, I'm like, I went the same time or a wee bit faster. In my head, like that's a massive. I could have been in the final if I'd done the same dive then.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was another thing that got me. I was like, what if I don't know if it was the occasion got to me or I was not focused, but yeah, I feel like I could have done way better than I did. Um, so yeah, that was really hard to deal with, and I don't think I dealt with it at all. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's one of those, you always get told to, if you have a bad swim, put it behind you because you can't do anything about it. I definitely didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing, if anyone can learn from that, like you can't do anything about the past or stuff that's been. You just got to move on and focus on the next job at hand. Um, but yeah, so that was why that was. Oh, I can't describe the feeling of coming into that wall knowing that you'd like the biggest moment of your life and you've messed it up. Oh, it was awful.
Wow.
It's quite funny thinking about it now, but um, yeah, that was so bad.
Wow. I think what I find really interesting about it, and I want to next talk about the actual stroke itself, the butterfly, because it's like I said in the very beginning, it's interesting how the body mechanics work, but it's amazing how much control and knowledge you have of your own swim that you were able while going through like because if I was competing in the Commonwealth Games, the only thing I'd be thinking is go like the clappers. Like I'm not thinking about
Yeah,
anything else. It's just I've got to get through this pool as quick as I can and like hit that wall. But the control you must have and like your actual awareness of what's going on in your body to identify with, but like you said, you're on your final two strokes or whatever it was, and you're like, I've chucked this. Um, so when you're training the butterfly, so first of all, for those that don't know, the butterfly is the stroke that looks like it's actually inhuman to do. Gregor's actually almost replicating like a dolphin with how much of his body is actually coming out of the water as he goes. Can you just sort of explain the butterfly to us, like as a simple mechanic, like what your legs are doing, how the start is, how your arms actually move? Because it's not a case of you do the same stroke every time. There's a different stroke between. So you do one where your head rarely comes out of the water, and then the second one your more upper body comes
yeah.
out of the water.
Just depends like when you breathe. So obviously you'll need you lift your head to breathe, but you want to like try and keep your chin like on the surface of the water and like push your head forward because you don't
Right.
want to come up too much. Um, and then the legs, like you keep your feet together and you're kind of like it's called dolphin kick when you're grown up because it's kind of like a dolphin that motion and it flies like all about rhythm. Like if you don't get into your, it's kind of hard to describe, but like you when you do it, like you've got a rhythm that feels like natural and good
Right.
for you. And if you don't find that,
So is it
it just
rhythm more than speed in the butterfly? Like it's more beneficial to have that rhythm, like you're saying, rather than just I'm gonna like windmill my arms as fast as humanly possible to pull myself through this water.
yeah. Yeah, you need to. It's having like that little bit of like control. Like obviously, you're wanting to go on the 50. You like that's usually all I think about is just going in and because I actually found out last year as well. I got diagnosed with ADHD last year that I've had
Oh,
since I was a kid. But so
wow.
like for me, like there's just so much going on that very rarely I'm thinking about what I'm actually doing.
Hmm.
So usually for me it's that I've got one plan and that plan is go and that's what happens. Like I'll just spin, and that's when you can tell that I'm not done as well because my arms will just be spinning. You're not like pulling as much water.
Hmm.
But yeah, flies like the stroke that's got like the most, I'll call it like dead time. So like when you're bringing your arms like over the water, you're not kicking either. So
Okay.
you need so much momentum to carry you and keep your speed going because you're not doing anything in that time.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that's why effort wise it's harder because there is so much dead time in it, and also doing that motion with your shoulders like at full extension and like kind of having them out. Like if you held weights like at the end of your arms and stretched them out, like that's going to be really hard after even like 10, 20 seconds. Um, so I think it's just the way you move your arms makes it very hard on the shoulders. But yeah, I don't know why like that. I knew I'd messed up the finish because that's the only time I've ever like properly been like thinking about what I'm doing in a
Hmm.
race. But that was weird. But
So what gave it away, or what gave it away to yourself that you'd messed up? Did you just feel your rhythm was off straight away, and you're just like I've just not? Did you like I've just not hit the water at that magic spot that made it feel comfortable, or?
nah, so you you count like you'll when you're coming into the wall, you'll know how many strokes you've got left to like hit the wall on a full stroke.
Hmm.
Because that's obviously the fastest way. You don't want to be like having a half stroke or I don't know if you've ever seen the Michael Phelps thing from 2008 Olympics where it's like inhuman how he wins the 100 butterfly final because there's one
I've
guy
not
that
seen that.
looks
No.
like the guys against glides into the wall, whereas Michael finishes on a full stroke and that's how he wins the race. Even
All
though
right.
when you're like when that guy starts gliding, you're like, there's no way Phelps is going to win this, and he
Hmm.
does. Like it's just insane. So I knew like I wasn't going to finish on that full stroke, and then I was like, it's going to be horrible. And then usually it's not that bad, but for some reason this time I was like, this is going to be a really, really. I don't know why I'd mucked up the count so badly. Um, but yeah, I knew this was going to be not
Oh,
not the best.
So when you're swimming that length, are you actually planning how much distance your strokes get you so that you do finish on that full stroke?
Mm,
Or is it a case of like sometimes it's just like a happy accident of I'm gonna finish this on a full stroke and have to glide?
for most world class butterflyers, they'll know exactly how many strokes they do. And
Wow.
for
So
me,
you're
like
almost
I
like
only know,
counting it down at that point, and you're like, okay,
yeah. So
in the
they'll
water,
know.
out the
I don't
pool,
know.
out, yeah, out the
Yeah, I don't know.
dive, 15 strokes to go.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll count like whilst they're swimming, but for me, like I can't do that. It's really difficult to like
Yeah.
focus on doing that. Um, so the only way I know how many strokes I do is because the data scientist tells me after you did this many strokes. Like he'll send me a data sheet with like how many strokes I did, what my velocity was, it all
Mhm.
this other data.
On a
Um,
completely nerdy level, I'd love to see one of these data sheets at one point. I reckon they'd be ridiculously
oh,
interesting.
they're so cool. And but yeah, like I'll know roughly because obviously you've got the flags that are 5 meters out.
Yeah.
Um, and I'll know that if I hit them, like, so if my fingertips are at the flags, then I'll know I can get two like good full strokes in. If it's like a
Right,
half one,
okay.
then I'll know I need three. And that's something that the thousands and thousands of meters that you do across the year, like hundreds of thousand meters actually, but it's just like a habit that you get into. Um, and then when the only way to like fully practice it is when you're going like full speed in training, like trying to simulate that race finish. Um,
Mhm.
and my even in training, it's like it's like a learned habit. So if you're constantly messing it up in training, you're gonna mess it up in a race because your brain will just revert back to what feels comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was more like you said, a happy accident. For me, it does feel like more a happy accident, which is not obviously what you want for a world class level.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I need to get better at making it a habit rather than just like fingers crossed it's going to work out. Kind of.
I love it. I know that's not how you think, but I love the thought of because you're what I love that you're saying there as well is like for world class athletes, and I'm like you're swimming in the Commonwealth Games, Gregor. You are a world class athlete, and then it's like, but you're just like, oh, happy accident. And I'm like, I wish I could break world records at like or a Scottish record on a happy accident level.
See the thing with that is like I feel so bad saying it and like I don't want to sound like a big headed or whatever, but I still don't feel like that good because I look at the British record holder Ben Proud is literally one of the best fly swimmers in the world over the
Mhm.
50, and his British record is still a second quicker than my Scottish record. So in my head, I'm like, I'm nowhere near the best yet because I've still got
Mhm.
that step to go. So I think it is because I want to be the best. It's like, yeah, okay, it doesn't feel like an achievement to me because I've not got to where I want to be yet.
Mhm.
Which sounds really bad, but I don't know. It just because I want to be better. It's like, and I think it's something I'll realize like after I stop swimming. Like, you know what, that's actually a really good achievement. And same with the medal from the Commonwealth Games in like
Mhm.
20 years, however long. I'm not going to think back and be like, oh, I don't deserve that. All that I'm going to think is I've got a medal. And that's what one of the other swimmers that had been to previous Commonwealth Games, he said he struggled with the same thing. And that now he just looks at it as I've got those two medals. He doesn't associate it with feelings, and it's just something that'll come with time. But I think at the minute, yeah, nothing's
Yeah.
good enough yet. So
But at the same time, I love that mentality of you're like, no, I'm not done yet. This isn't the end of it. Like this is only the beginning, which I really love. I think that's commendable, and I think, like you said, you spoke about Michael Phelps there. I imagine he probably, until he retired, felt the same way. He's like, well, he's probably got a net 30 kilograms of medals around his neck, and he's still pushing
yeah,
for the next one. Something I've just brought came to my attention now. You mentioned the call room, and then like how that. So we don't get to see inside the call room very. We just get to see you guys come out, and you always. I always admire the swimmers who come out with such a steely focus. Because obviously, you come out with like big headphones on, swimming caps are already on, goggles are on. So like there is no giveaway in human emotion in the swimmers when they come out. So when you come out, do you come out not like wire focus, or are you sort of like you said you didn't really take as many moments in, but like are you acknowledging what's around you as you come out to the pool, or are you I'm
Mm,
looking straight at my platform, I'm focused purely on the platform, I'm going to get the jacket and the trackies off, and I'm just focused on that swim?
I think there I was really focused. I just wanted to look as mean as possible. I don't know why. I just like to look as menacing as possible when I come out. But like being in the call room with like people you've looked up to all your life as the best fly swimmers in the world, and then
Mm-hmm.
to be in a lane next to them, I couldn't believe it. Like it was almost, I don't know. It was just that like I think the occasion just took me off guard, like because
Mm-hmm.
I'd grown up watching these guys at Olympics winning gold, like Chad Leclos, who was in the lane next to me, beat
Yeah,
Michael Phelps in London, I think,
I remember
and
watching that
that
race
started
actually.
his
Yeah.
career as one of the best fly swimmers in the world. And
He was like
and now I'm
17 at the
next.
time or something, was he not? And
I think so, yeah.
he
Just
was
a
like
young
six foot
guy,
eight at
right?
the age of 15 or something.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, just incredible being next to these guys that
Wow.
you look up to so much.
In the call room, are you like as a Scotland collective, or is it like individual, or depending on what events are on that day, or is it like, are you still very much like a team in the call
So
room?
we had like a every team had like a prep area where
Ah,
you
right,
did
okay.
like stretching and stuff. Then once you go into the call room, you're like individual athletes, and you just
So
go in,
there's like a separate, like the call room's like a middle intermediary
yeah,
between the. All right,
and you're
okay.
like no coaches are allowed in, like no only athletes are allowed in. So you go in, you get your cap and goggles and your trunks checked to make sure that
Mhm.
they are like the stand, like you're not cheating basically.
Yeah.
Um, and then you just have to sit and wait until you're called, and then you usually get at normal competitions it'll be like 3 or 4 heats. You get marshaled in advance, so like you'll be in your heat, and then you walk out. But yeah, there it was like I don't know, being like with those guys, it's quite intimidating. Like being in a
Mhm.
room full of like world class, like the best of the best fly swimmers. Yeah.
Wow. And then lastly, what's your go-to music when you're in the call room? Are you like a hype music kind of person, or are you like a calm music?
So I actually listened to the same song on repeat.
Which
Um,
song?
it's called "Numb" by Ryan Oakes. It's
I
quite
don't think
depressing,
I
but I
don't think
don't know
I've heard that
why.
one.
Yeah, it's not one that many people have heard of, but
Mhm.
I don't know why. I just my
Just a
go-to.
mindset thing, yeah.
And
Just
yeah,
oh, fair play. Hey, thank you for listening to this Clips episode on YouTube. And then if you want to hear the whole podcast, you can find them on Apple or Spotify, as well as the full video version on this YouTube channel, alongside all the other great content we produce on a weekly basis. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you again on another Clips episode or in the full episode podcast. Tweet us, tag us, let us know what you thought. All the links are down in the description. It means the world that you guys come and support us, so thank you very much.